Well, hello, this is Kevin Wood again, and I am doing the fifth installment in my series on Last Things. And just glad you see fit to go ahead and watch this video with me. I kind of think that this is going to be like other videos that I've done, that a few people are just going to watch this over time and sometimes years after the event, and that's okay. There is no time stamp or time necessarily. I hope there's no time element to this particular video. Today, we're going to talk about Islam in the last days. This is I think, a relevant topic, and in spite of the fact that, in light of the events that are going on in America right now with protests, and I use that term protest in almost a derogatory manner because we know it's more than protests. It's riots and looting and scumbaggery that is going on in the world. But I'll be polite and I'll call what's going on out there a protest, of course, being fomented by the left and fomented by the media, fomented by demonic and evil people. What a lot of people don't realize is that participating with Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, a left-wing Marxist organization, participating with them is Antifa, a radical left-wing violent Marxist organization, and along with them are elements of the Muslim Brotherhood. And this has been uncovered in a variety of locations across America. Moreover, not only do we have in these protests elements of the Muslim Brotherhood, we also have a renewed interest in Louis Farrakhan, who has been the figurehead for Islam in America for a long, long time. His connection to Barack Obama, of course, was obscured before the 2008 election, even though that connection between himself and Barack Obama is well known. And one thing to keep an eye on, and I would just kind of recommend this, is look at the number of celebrities. There were three of them that came out yesterday, and look at the number of celebrities that come out. And they will come out in coming days in support of Louis Farrakhan. The reason I say that is because there is a larger context in this world than what is going on in America. And the larger context in this world than what's going on in America may indeed be at a tipping point. I don't think we are. However, has been a push, a population change push. This, of course, was underscored, codified, discovered in Mark Stein's book, which was fantastic, that he wrote in, I think, about 2005 in America alone. Mark Stein was one of the very first people in the world to say, if we're not careful, we're going to find that Europe is completely overrun by Islam by the year 2050. And indeed, as he outlined in that particular book, that will be the case, that Europe itself will be completely obscured or eradicated because of shift of population. And let's make no mistake about that. This was no accident. It was no accident that Europe is going to become Islamic. It's no accident, even in America, that the city of Minneapolis has, in large degree, become Muslim. These were planned takeovers by politicians, sometimes not even in America, who have a desire to see a population shift in certain parts of the world. It is tragic and it's sad, and I think that reality, the coming of Sharia law to large parts of the world, which Sharia or Sharia law is foreign to, I think ought to concern many, many believers. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Islam in the last days, because I think Islam in the last days forms the overall backdrop for the return of Jesus Christ. In particular, there is a character in Islam who is called the Mahdi, or the Caliph, or the 12th Imam, or the hidden Imam, who is said to be the descendant of Muhammad himself. This, of course, is from the eschatological perspective of Shia Islam, but there are adherents in Sunni Islam to the same idea, the same concept, that they are eagerly awaiting the appearance of the 12th Imam. The 12th Imam, from the Christian perspective, fits nicely into our concept, our idea, our teaching about what we might expect the Antichrist to be and to do. And so, as we begin to notice, as I brought up at the very beginning of this teaching, as we begin to notice the increasing influence worldwide of Islam, we need to be aware that the ultimate goal of many branches of Islam, and not just Shia Islam. Now, of course, Shia Islam is considered to be the eschatological branch of Islam, but nonetheless, for instance, when ISIS became huge, let's say 2011, in Syria, parts of Iraq, what was going on there? Well, that was an eschatological furor that was going on there. These people were hoping to foment chaos and jihad to the point that they could bring forth the 12th Imam. Well, who is the 12th Imam? Well, the 12th Imam, from the Islamic perspective, is their version of the last days Messiah, or last days hero. From a Christian perspective, we're going to see that the 12th Imam is very, very, very similar to what we would expect the Antichrist to be. Now, my presumption is, and I stated this in an earlier video, that the epicenter for almost all of the events that we see in the New Testament and Old Testament in terms of thinking about the last things, or eschatology, or just before Jesus returns, the epicenter for that will be the Middle East. And so if it's going to be the Middle East, I would suggest to you that we need to be very aware, those of us who are believers, of the mindset of the average person who lives in the Middle East. And the average person who lives in the Middle East is not Christian, also not Jewish. The average person who lives in the Middle East is Muslim. And those people who live in the Middle East have an expectation, and that expectation is that in the last days, there will come to the fore a person who's called the Mahdi, the hidden Imam, the 12th Imam. And this person will set right those things which are not right in the world, and eventually subjugate the entire planet to Muhammad, to Islam. By the way, Islam does not mean peace. Islam means submission. And the ultimate goal of Islam is not peace worldwide. Anybody who tries to tell you that Islam comes in and ushers in some kind of a golden age of whatever, they're selling you something. Because when Islam comes in, they come in for one reason, and that is to usher in submission by every person. This is what Sharia is all about. And this is what it means if you're in some city and all of a sudden you find yourself a second-class citizen because you're not Islamic, you're someone else. And Islam is all about submission. So let's talk about this 12th Imam and how he will be similar to what Christians expect the Antichrist to be. First of all, the Antichrist will bring chaos and will rule many nations. You can look up Revelation 6:2. You can look at Revelation 13:7 there. When Christians think about last days, I think, sadly, so many Christians are ignorant of what to expect in terms of what it might look like. And I'm just going to tell you right now that we have a picture in mind, those of us who've traveled, those of us who, let me say this, who've read a little bit on worldwide persecution of believers, Christians, Jews. We have a picture in mind of what that might look like in the last days, who the Antichrist might be. And a likely candidate for the Antichrist is going to be someone who is a representative of Islam. And why do I say that? Because that's already occurring. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is the former president of Iran. And some years ago, I'm going to say 2009, 2010, he addressed the UN. And he was not shy of stating that he believed that the 12th Imam was already among us, that part of the reason why Iran is who Iran is is because they want to bring in chaos to the point that they could set the stage for the coming of the 12th Imam. Many believers don't understand the overall context of Islam. They don't understand about jihad. They don't understand why there is this push from, for instance, ISIS to create regional chaos and ultimately a caliphate. Well, what are they doing? They're attempting to set the stage for the coming of the 12th Imam. And by the way, in Islamic eschatology, Jesus himself will come in the last days and bend a knee and submit to Islam, to Muhammad. That's what they believe and that's what they teach. The 12th Imam is an important figure in the last days. And just as in the Christian perspective, we have the idea of the Antichrist coming and ruling over many nations and bringing chaos and trouble and trial. Well, what does Islam expect? They expect the exact same thing, that the Ummah will be established by the 12th Imam. He will come along and rule over many nations, and he will bring chaos, trouble, and jihad to anybody who does not bend a knee to Islam or Muhammad. You can see there that the picture of the 12th Imam and the Antichrist from a Christian perspective is very, very similar. Also, we know a thing or two in America about anti-Semitism. We have not been blinded over the years to the realities of the anti-Semitism of leftism and the anti-Semitism of Islam. Europe, over the last 2 decades, is becoming and has become an increasingly hostile environment for anybody Jewish. And so where are they going? They're fleeing to the Middle East, quite often to the country of Israel. They're getting out of Europe because there is a cultural shift that's taking place in that part of the world that is not tolerant of Jews. In the last days, Islam, as it is promulgated, set forth, as population shifts take place, Mark Stein has set this forth in his book, America Alone, it will make living intolerable for large populations of Christians and Jews, where the population comes in, and that population will not tolerate anybody who will not submit. And what kind of religion in the world is like that? Well, there is one religion in the world that tends to move in and dominate and become intolerant to all other perspectives, and that is Islam. So, in the last days, Israel will be attacked by we see this in the book of Ezekiel, but also we see references in the book of Revelation. And I would reference chapter 12, chapter 13, that Christians, people of faith, Jews, they're going to find themselves in a hostile environment, and the 12th Imam is going to be the leader. The Antichrist is going to be this figure that will lead forth in such a way that it's going to be hard for people to be believers. And as I said in my previous lesson, the picture we have of the last days is not this triumphant picture where the church increasingly gets stronger and finally Jesus returns to claim his bride, which has been completely protected during a period of tribulation. The opposite is true. Now, I don't want to belittle anybody else's perspective, but the biblical perspective is this, that the church will increasingly find itself under pressure. Many, many Christians and Jews will be persecuted, and the likely suspect for this kind of worldwide persecution is a worldwide religion, and that is Islam, and led in the last days by their expectation of the 12th Imam. And Christians better be ready for persecution, and they better be ready for the severest form of persecution, which is beheadings. See Revelation chapter 20. The beheading will be the chosen or the preferred method of killing those who are considered to be heretics. This is already true in Islam, and it will only accelerate in the last days. I would say this, that any form of punishment that is capital in nature that ends up with somebody being dead is terrible, but a particularly demonic form of persecution where people lose their heads is especially demonic. And this, of course, is pointed to in Scripture in Revelation chapter 20. And it is the preferred method in Islam for killing people. Just look up the surah where it talks about believers, those members of Islam, smiting Jews and Christians on the neck. I think it's pretty clear there in the Quran, their preferred method of killing Christians and Jews. And in the last days, the 12th Imam will lead out in persecuting believers and Jews who refuse to submit. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. In the last days, the Antichrist will come promising peace, and then will turn, Zechariah 14:2, and make war on Jerusalem. And is there any doubt that this ultimately is what we would expect an Islamic world leader to do? There is a long history in Islam. It's called taqiyya. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But it is the willingness to deceive, and especially those who are not of the Ummah or the Caliphate or not believers, so not those who are in Islam. It's okay to deceive. So in the last days, just like the biblical picture of the Antichrist, in the last days there will come one who is a great deceiver, who will deceive many, who will promise peace, but in the end deliver destruction. And that destruction ultimately will be aimed at the epicenter of the world, and the epicenter of the world has always been Jerusalem. And sadly so in the last days, Jerusalem will find itself attacked, pressed on many corners, and then the end will come. Many, many Jews will die. Many, many Christians will die. This is what we can expect from the 12th Imam, the hidden Imam, the Mahdi. This is what we can expect, already know we can expect from Islam. They are no friends of Christianity. And while I'm on this subject, there has been the argument going around, and it's mostly from a Christian perspective, missionaries and other folks who want to give Islam the benefit of the doubt. And we should not hate anybody. We should love and through evangelical measures try to lead everybody to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. However, let's be very clear that the God of Islam is not the same as the God of Christianity or Israel. The God of Islam is Allah. And anybody who has ever seen the Hajj procession around the Kaaba stone will tell you this is not our God. And so those of you who don't know what the Hajj procession is, let me tell you briefly that in a counterclockwise motion during the Hajj, which is required for every member of Islam worldwide, people move in a circular motion until everybody has the opportunity to touch this rock, which is at the center. It's called the Kaaba stone. It's at the center of this procession. Just get online and watch this procession. Can I tell you this right now? Any religion, any faith, which at the center of his religion has some kind of a stone, which some people associate with the worship of the moon god, ancient history. Islam is a product of is a syncretism of a variety of religious movements and faiths that Muhammad happened to stumble into in the 7th century. And it all got amalgamated together and became a societal political movement, period. The God of Islam is not the same God as the God of Christianity, and it is blasphemous, in my opinion, even to suggest that is the case. And let's just look at the products of Islam over the last many centuries, and that is persecution of Christians, the turning of believers, people of faith, into second-class citizens wherever they go. And by the way, I'm not going to buy any of the arguments which say, well, they should be appeased, they should be excused because they're reacting to the Crusades, or they're reacting to the fall of the Caliphate of Turkey, or they're reacting to the gates of Vienna, or there's always some kind of a precedent that Islam is going to claim. But I'm going to tell you this right now, almost every time, if you look historically at almost every moment where Islam has been beaten down, they started the fight. And it's not like they're completely innocent in the whole thing. Let's set that trope aside and just be really honest here that at its core, Islam has been a violent political movement of radical expansionism from the very beginning of its onset. After Muhammad had his visions of the angel Gabriel in the cave, it led to regional domination and eventual worldwide domination. And there are many leftists and what I consider to be silly dupes out there that have become willing allies in the spread of Islam worldwide and setting the stage for the coming of the 12th Imam, who I believe will be the last days Antichrist. Let me throw a few more verses at you and then we're going to wrap. Revelation 13:5, arrogant and pompous. We would expect this. Just look at the statements of someone like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, or Erdogan in Turkey, and you'll see that it is one of the features of Islamic leaders as they try to reestablish a caliphate or an ummah, that they are arrogant and pompous, and this, of course, is a feature of the last days Antichrist. I'm going to say one more quick thing. I've got a lot more verses, and I'll try and pick this up on the next video that I do. Let me say one thing that we can expect in the last days. In the last days, the Antichrist, many people will follow him. And this is why I brought up Louis Farrakhan at the beginning of this video. No, I do not believe Louis Farrakhan is the Antichrist. However, there is a renewed push. Keep your eyes open and just do an internet search. Keep your eyes open at how many celebrities out there all of a sudden are supporting Louis Farrakhan, where for many years the Democratic Party was embarrassed to be seen with him and would not mention his name, even though they secretly supported him. And the same thing with Black Lives Matter. For many years, you just couldn't say out loud that you were a supporter of Antifa or BLM. And of course, now every Democrat subscribes to not just BLM, but Antifa as well, which is the military wing of the Democratic Party. Keep an eye out for these things, for people coming public in their support of Louis Farrakhan. And keep in mind that Louis Farrakhan is the face of Islam and has been in America for a long, long time. And this will tell you the intention of those who have influence and power in our country and where they would like to take our country. Eventually, their goal is that our country would be an Islamic country, period, end of sentence. And this sets the stage for worldwide submission, and it makes it dangerous for believers, for Christians, for Jews, for anybody who will refuse to submit. And it sets the stage for the coming of an Antichrist figure who will be the 12th Imam and dominate many peoples of many nations. If you have any comments or questions, you can email me at kwood50322@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I'll continue this subject pretty soon on another video on Islam number 2. So have a great day. Bye.